Hello, everybody. So today I would like to introduce you to a very, very dear friend of mine, more like a brother to me, and very well known to all of you. And he's our Reiki guru. He's the Reiki historian. He's the Reiki researcher. He lives, breathes, and sleeps Reiki. And that's Frank Arjava Petter, or Arjava Sensei, as we all know. At the moment, Arjava is in Lesvos, where he lives. He hasn't left the island because of the pandemic. So he's had lots of time this year, in the last year, to write more books and to do more research and everything that he loves. Originally born in Germany, he now lives in Greece, but he lived in Japan for 12 years, I think. Yes, was that right? Yes. And he speaks fluent Japanese. And he was the person who we credit to finding the real origins of Reiki. Arjava, like me, started learning Reiki way back in the early 90s, about 1992. And it was his dedication and his research and his real love of Reiki that brought the authentic, traditional Japanese Reiki to the West finally. So I'd just like to say welcome. And is there anything you would like to say before we start talking about Reiki?
Thank you very much for having me today, for talking to me. I'm really looking forward to sharing what I know with everyone. And okay, ready to go.
Ready to go. And for those of you who don't know, he's written many, many books on Reiki, and his last one was called One with Reiki. But they are like your Bible. His books are almost like the Bible. And it was because of him that I carried on my journey with Reiki and never looked back, but they were his books. And even though I might be a bit biased because he's my dear friend, but in those days, we didn't know each other. So what I'd like you to talk about today is what Reiki is and how it came around.
Okay, all right. So what Reiki is, that's an easy question to answer. Reiki is the natural response that any human or any animal has to injury, to not feeling well. So all the animals, including the human, have the inherent ability to heal themselves. We have all the tools, all the knowledge, all the wisdom that it takes to heal ourselves. So if you think what your first reaction would be if you hit your head, is you put your hand on it, and then perhaps you look if it's bleeding, and if it's not, then you put your hand back. Why? Because you know that your touch has healing powers. So Reiki is the natural response to not feeling well or to injury. And in Reiki, we magnify that. We put the spotlight on it. We bring it back into awareness. And I have the following image for that. Let's say I live here in Greece, and the village we live in has been populated for thousands and thousands of years. So wherever you are, wherever you stand, wherever you sit, something was below you, was built below you previously. We have a place where we teach, where we have our dojo, our training center. And let's imagine that there were a treasure hidden there, but I don't know where it is. So as long as I don't know where it is, it doesn't help me at all. Right? But then if some smart person comes by, a Reiki teacher in this instance, and says, here, look, you have to dig right here. You have to look right here. Then you can dig in that place, you can find the treasure, and then you can use it. And Reiki is just like that. You have it. It's there, you just don't know how to access it, how to use it. And all you need is the help from somebody who knows how to make use of it. Yeah, that's it. That's Reiki. Very, very simple. Every mother does that to her kids.
So it's really just reconnecting us back. And you have a lovely saying, you always say it's like cleaning the pipe to reconnection when we learn Reiki. So how did you yourself get into Reiki? I mean, for me, I was ill, and it was a long story which I won't go into now, but I'd been ill for about nearly 3 years, and after 5 sessions of Reiki, which was a miraculous happening because I was living in the Middle East at the time where we couldn't practice it and most people had never heard of it, I was well. And of course, then I was a great believer and I went on to learn it. How about you?
For me, it all started with headache. I had a headache. I was in India at the Osho ashram at the time in 1988, and I knew somebody, a friend of a friend, who was practicing Reiki. We asked her to give me a treatment. It didn't work. I thought Reiki was the most boring thing in the world, and it didn't work. So I kind of ticked it off my list of the things that I might want to learn more about. But then somewhere deep inside, there was this feeling all the time telling me, hey, you should start to look for a Reiki teacher to learn it. I was wondering myself, why am I trying to learn something that I have experienced? I didn't like, it didn't work, I didn't give the desired result, and I found it like utterly boring. Why in the world would you like to learn something like that? I couldn't understand it. Years later, after I've been practicing for Reiki for many years, I realized that what happened. I realized what happened to me. So from a Japanese point of view, Japanese people believe that everybody, every one of us has a soul, and that soul is common, is collective, is shared. So we all share the same thing, the same soul. And during the pregnancy of your mom, the gods come around and implant a little aspect of that soul where the third eye and the crown chakra meet in a straight line. So, and that soul is connected to source, to the common consciousness or something. And when that soul is tickled, when it's touched by somebody giving you a Reiki session or a Reiki initiation, that reconnects to source. And once that reconnects, it doesn't leave you in peace. It's such a nice memory to know, to realize that you are connected to source, that you and the universe are one. You can never forget that once you have tasted it, even if that taste was unconscious.
Very interesting, yes. That is so true. Yeah, and we never forget our first experience of Reiki can be like yours or like me. I was suddenly well, and I never looked back, but I wanted to go and find out more. And we hear it all the time. Reiki changed my life, and it literally did for me, and it literally did for you too.
Absolutely. I didn't get it. I didn't understand it consciously, but deep down, the seed was sown, and it just kept coming up, kept growing, 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 growing. And I only realized it when it actually started to come to the surface.
Yes.
That I learned Reiki, and that's another whole story. I had 4 different teachers. Everyone taught me what they could until I found my final teacher, Chiyoko Yamaguchi, or Chiyoko Sensei in Kyoto, in Japan, who taught me the traditional teaching. And this is what I really longed for, what my heart longed for, and this is what I practice ever since I met her.
Thank goodness you did. And like for me too, I was like you, kept learning and learning from different teachers and kept thinking we're not quite getting it quite right. We're still missing an essence. So for me, it was wonderful when I first met you or first started to read about you. And of course, Reiki has changed our lives. And we can talk for a long time, and you can go to Frank's Instagram, his website, read all his books, and you'll find out so much more about his journey and his growth and his research with Reiki. And he's really amazing. And we're just going to touch on something today that people are always asking. What is the difference between what has now been known as Western Reiki, which of course is what you and I learned in the first place, and Japanese Reiki? And we're asked this all the time. So over to you.
All right. So really what comes out of our hands is all the same. And no matter where you learned Reiki, Reiki doesn't have a label. Reiki, the meaning of the word Reiki is spirit or soul energy. And as we said earlier, that soul energy is something that we all take part in, that we are all swimming in. We're swimming in that ocean of consciousness all together. So that soul energy is one and the same. It doesn't have any label of any school, and also doesn't differ at all. So some people seem to think that their teaching is better, their Reiki is better than somebody else's. That's ridiculous. Yeah? It's all the same. Okay, so this must be clear from the beginning, that what we do is exactly the same stuff, the same medium coming out of our hands. Yeah? There are, however, differences in practice. Yeah? And this is a question, really a question of taste, a question of your personality, what suits you. Yeah? A lot of Reiki schools teach a mixture of New Age methods and Eastern spirituality. They mix in some yoga, some chakras, some of whatever, some Ayurveda. Also, and mix that with the original teaching. And what I learned from my teacher from Chiyoko Yamaguchi didn't have any Western influences or other Eastern influences in it at all. It's just pure and straightforward and very simple Japanese spirituality. So that's really the bottom line difference. Now, as I said, there is no difference in what comes out of your hands, in the energy that comes out of your hands, but there is difference in philosophy, and there's difference in actual practice. And maybe I will just say the main differences, as far as I understand, between the Eastern and the Western approach is, first of all, Eastern people are basically not really concerned with the I, with the self, with me. Yeah? So they're not ego-centered, but they're centered towards the collective, which means that from a Japanese point of view, from an Eastern point of view, Reiki is something that you do for others, to help others. So it has a very intense, compassionate component. Yeah? Whereas in Western Reiki, people seem to think it's for me, so I'm better, I become a better person, and so on. For Oriental people, there is no point in becoming a better person, because they believe that ego, all that ego is, which is the self, is an illusion that needs to be understood and transcended. So there's no point in becoming better. There's nobody there in the first place. So this is the first difference. The next difference is that in many Western Reiki schools, we believe that we have these different degrees, and that those degrees are some kind of achievement that make you better, make you have more energy, make you more spiritual, or anything like that. And all of that is given by the great teacher via an initiation or the use of some symbols of some kind. And In Japanese culture, that's not seen like that at all, but they believe that you grow by the work that you have done, the inner work that you have done. And if you don't do anything, you don't grow either. Yes, so it's more like any of the Japanese traditional arts, tea ceremony, or calligraphy, or any of the martial arts, where you work, and when your teacher has seen a certain progress in you, will give you the next higher level, will certify you in the next higher level. So all depends on the work that you do at home. Yeah? And practically that means that there are, besides the daily treatments, exercises that one should practice when at home. And when one doesn't practice, one doesn't learn. Yeah? So that's maybe the main difference between the Eastern and the Western approach. Because of my history, my personal history, having lived in Japan between 1989 and 2002, and also from when I was a teenager, I had strong ties to Japan already. Because of that, the traditional teaching really suits me the best, and that's why I chose that. If you are more inclined to let's say, mix Reiki with something else, then that's okay. Then that might suit you, but it doesn't suit me.
That's the same for me too, and because I'd lived in the Far East for so long. So, well, we are not going to talk much longer because we have lots of information about you on the internet, but you've also got your own website, and we can do some more recordings later. I would just like to remind everybody that everybody can practice Reiki, everybody can learn, because it's just reconnecting us back. What word of advice would you give to people who are looking to practice Reiki or to learn Reiki, or even to have a Reiki session? Is there any wise words that you would like to say?
Reiki, if you want to receive a Reiki treatment, is always good. It's always good to connect back to source. And this, I think all of us know, that when we are connected to source, when we are in harmony with our surroundings, in harmony with what is happening in this moment, we feel well. And when we're not, when we feel disconnected or somehow not in the right place, then we don't. Yeah? So Reiki will help you connect again to your essential being, and that will be good for you. Whatever the situation, don't need to be ill for that. Yeah? In fact, it would be nice to receive a treatment just for you to reconnect to yourself, to come back to yourself, to come close to yourself and be in harmony with yourself. If you would like to deepen that, then learning would be really wonderful, because then you can either treat other people or you can treat yourself. And while treating other people, you automatically again connect to your own source and that of the other. And then it's a journey, a lifelong journey that just opens up in front of you beautifully. Yeah? A very nice vista. So the aim of Reiki is not to reach something, not to gain something, not to be different than you are, but the aim is the lifelong practice. And if you are interested in that, then this is for you. And I'd be very happy to see you in one of my workshops someday when that's possible, or in Julie's.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, hopefully that won't be too long. So Arjava travels the world, teaching all the time the Jikiden Reiki. I teach it sometimes. We're together here in Bahrain, in Virginia Beach, in the UK. But once you start tasting Reiki, whether it's just for treatment believe me, it changes your life, and you just expand and you grow. And I'd just like to add here that Reiki is not a cult, and it's not a religion. It's a way of life. It's pro-life. It can never harm you. It can only ever enhance you in every way. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, that's exactly right. Reiki is always good, no matter what. But also, it's not a magic pill. So if somebody is ill, Reiki is an offering. Most of the time, people will feel better, but you never know on what level, on what part of their psycho, emotional, or physical self they will improve. Sometimes when it is too late for the body to recuperate, then Reiki or anything else will not help physically, but it will help maybe on the emotional or on the mental level.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's always good, and there are absolutely no contraindications whatsoever.
Absolutely none. And everybody can receive Reiki. It is safe for everybody. Well, I would like to say thank you very much to you today. Please look out on Arjava's website for, hopefully he'll be allowed to teach again soon. We'll be able to leave his beautiful island. Contact me if you need any advice, or you want to know when we're holding workshops, or if I am or he is. But please feel free, and please remember to read his books. If you're interested in Reiki, believe me, if you read his books, it'll really tempt you to want to learn more and more and more. I just want to say thank you very much, and namaste. And I look forward to talking to you again very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.